What's going on, guys? Welcome to another Doctor Who classic review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the first Doctor William Hartnell story, The Ark. This is a story that I've heard very mixed things about. A lot of people saying they don't really like this story, but I have also heard good things about it where, it's kind of almost two stories in one. It's kind of it's the same story but in two times, like the same place but two periods of time. And I was always quite intrigued going into this one, but knowing that people also didn't really like it that much. It's only 4 parts, so it is not one of the stories that should drag out too much from this era. So I was interested going into it to see what this was like. Anyway, we're going to have a look at the back of the DVD. This is The Ark by Paul Erickson and Leslie Scott. In the final days of Earth, the TARDIS lands on a massive spaceship carrying the last members of the human race to a new home beyond the solar system. The humans are not out of danger, however, as a deadly plague emerges from the most unlikely of sources, the common cold carried by the Doctor's companion, Dodo. Put on trial for their lives, the TARDIS crew must find a way to repair the damage they have unwittingly caused and face up to the devastating consequences. So, reading the back of that DVD doesn't sound that interesting. It's literally, the whole human colony thing, the last days of Earth, so this human colony has gone off into space to try and find a new home. That's fairly interesting. Quite a cliched thing, but this is early Doctor Who, so we'll give it a pass on that regard. But then the whole a plague is an interesting thing, but the fact that it's just a common cold is interesting. But there's not a lot going on here in this story. To be fair, that is more the story of the first half of the story, the first part of it. So we'll talk about that soon. But reading the back of the DVD, it's not the most exciting plot from there. But anyway, let's get started with the cast. William Hartnell as the first Doctor. Yep, he's pretty good in this one. He's fine. I'm not going to say there's anything absolutely stand out from Hartnell in this story, but he's good. There's really not really much more to say. He's fine. Peter Purvis as Stephen Taylor. Yep, he's good in this one as well. He is the longer running companion of the two of these. This is actually Dodo's first story, which we'll get to in a second, or first proper story at least. But Peter Purvis, Stephen Taylor, good enough. Stephen's not a character that is not one of the companions that I love. I haven't seen the most of him because, to be fair, a lot of his episodes are missing, so we actually don't get to see a whole lot of Stephen at the moment. But he's fine enough in this. And Jackie Lane as Dodo Chaplet. Dodo's first proper story, I believe, and Dodo's not known as a great companion. She's actually, I think, a very forgotten about companion because she wasn't in the show for very long at all and kind of just appeared from nowhere seemingly. Dodo isn't great. She's just not very interesting. A very, very flat, boring character in my opinion. Just not a lot going on. I can't say anything bad about the acting by Jackie Lane, but the character herself, not very interesting. Right, let's get on to some points about this episode. People are punished by miniaturizing them and pausing their life to be brought back in hundreds of years. So this happens right at the beginning. We have this kind of human colony, and there's this guy there who's done something wrong. He's a criminal of some kind, and to punish him, they miniaturize him and basically bring him back in 100 years time. So although it's kind of a punishment, it's like, well, you're actually going to bring him back when Earth's Earth's gone, when they have a new planet. That's kind of the plan, to bring him back in 100 years time, in a few hundred years time, when they found a new planet. So is it really a punishment in that regard? I don't really know. I don't know if I missed something with that whole thing, but to me it doesn't really seem like a punishment. This isn't Earth. It's a spaceship made to look like Earth. So when the TARDIS crew first arrive, it looks like Earth. They think it's Earth, but there's all these animals and stuff. Hence the whole Ark story, the Ark title. There's animals and flowers and all this sort of stuff around, and they think it's Earth, but it turns out it's actually a spaceship that's made to look like Earth because they want to bring all these things, all these plants, wildlife, animals from Earth to this new planet that they're heading to rebuild to basically rebuild Earth. So it's quite an interesting concept. They're traveling to a new planet because Earth is dying. Yep, basically already gone over this. For whatever reason, Earth is dying, and the humans have to leave Earth and find a new planet. It's a story that's been told many, many times in all of science fiction and in Doctor Who quite a few times as well, but I believe this would have been one of, if not the first time it was actually told in Doctor Who. But, you know, in the future, we have this same sort of story happening quite a lot. But yeah, fairly basic stuff there. Dodo's cold has spread to the ship's leader and it may be lethal. This is when we find out what's going on with the cold. So Dodo has a cold when they arrive on this Ark ship, and she spreads it to the ship leader. Now, of course, the Doctor and Dodo and Stephen are all like, well, you know, this isn't going to be a problem. It's just a common cold. But these people, although they're humans way in the future, they don't have the cold there anymore. Like everybody has become immune to the cold, so it's not a thing anymore. So they don't get vaccinated for it or anything. You know, they're not immune. Their body doesn't help fight a cold because it doesn't exist for them anymore. So now bringing this cold back to these people that aren't immune to this disease, it's actually really bad for them. It's like really deadly. So I thought that was quite interesting. Doctor, Stephen and Dodo are on trial. Now this is something I've seen happen a lot in classic Doctor Who. The Doctor and his companions on trial. It happened very recently to this episode actually in The Keys of Marinus. And yeah, happened, of course, Trial of a Time Lord. There's plenty of other times, especially in the classic series, where the Doctor and or his companions are on trial as well. It seems to be a fairly common thing. And it happens again here because, you know, all these people are like, you've brought this deadly disease on board and now all our people are going to die. It's all your fault. So it's interesting, although the Doctor, and that's actually my next point, the Doctor making a cure for the virus, because he says, look, I can help cure all your people. I know what this disease is. I can help you with it. And, you know, they're kind of like, oh, what do we do? Do we want to trust him? In the end, they do decide to trust him. But, yeah, it's interesting. I do find it very interesting. The fact that it is just a common cold, although a little bit mundane, it does make sense, you know, that these people of the far, far future would not be immune to such a disease. You know, we get a cold, a little bit of a sniffle and you're fine. For these people, they can die from it, and people do end up dying from this. They return to the Ark, but 700 years have passed and the monoids have taken over. So I haven't talked about the monoids at all because there wasn't really anything to say in the first two parts. So the monoids are kind of these servants of the humans. They're aliens with one big eye in their forehead. And yeah, they're called the monoids. They serve the humans. They don't speak. They're basically slaves for the humans. But then the Doctor lands 700 years in the future on the same ship. Now it's almost like it's a parallel world, because now the monoids are in charge and they can speak, and the humans are the ones being the servants. And I thought that was a really cool concept. Now, before going into this episode, I knew about this whole kind of two separate stories. I thought it was a parallel world thing. I thought it was like the second part was like a parallel world sort of thing. It's not. It's just the future, where the monoids have now taken over. So I think that as a story, you know, the first two parts, a bit dull with the whole cold thing, but when we come 700 years later, the monoids are in charge. That's when, for me, it starts getting more interesting. The Ark arrives on Refusus 2, but it's already inhabited. So Refusus 2, that is the planet that the human colony has been trying to get to make their next planet, their next Earth 2.0 basically. It's called Refusus 2. They get there. It turns out it's inhabited though by these creatures that you can't see. They're invisible creatures, but they are there because they get to the planet. The monoids, of course, are the ones taking charge here. They get on the planet, they see that there's structures and they're like, what's going on here? But they don't see any people, but then they hear somebody talking to them. And yeah, it's pretty cool. The fact that they're invisible is a bit like, oh, well, that's a bit of a cop-out. But at the same time, it's pretty cool. You see kind of stuff like floating around. And yeah. The monoids plan to destroy the Ark and the humans. So yes, the monoids originally said to the humans, we're gonna, we are now in charge, we're gonna go to Refusus 2, and I guess you will continue being our slaves. But their plan is actually, once they know that Refusus 2 is okay to inhabit, they're gonna just blow up the Ark with all the humans still on it. That is their plan. So now the monoids are the bad guys, and although are they the bad guys because the humans were using them as slaves, it's a very grey area, which I think is very clever. The monoid saying where the bomb is with the doctor right there. So yes, there is a bomb on the Ark and that's how they plan on destroying the Ark and all the humans. And yeah, the monoid literally just says, from what I remember, he just kind of says to the doctor, yeah, there's a or he's talking to one of the other monoids, and the doctor's just there with him, and he's like, yeah, the bomb, it's in the is it in the head, or I think there's like a statue of a monoid holding something, and it's in that. So it's like, wow, okay, just blurt it out with the doctor right there. That's not a bad idea at all. The monoids turn on each other. So it's been a couple of weeks since I actually watched this episode from when I'm doing this review, so I can't 100% remember this, but yeah, from what I remember, there was a couple of monoids that actually weren't so keen on this whole idea of, just destroying all these humans. And yeah, they start turning on each other, they start killing each other, and it turns out into a bit of a civil war between the monoids. They launch the bomb out of the ship. So to get rid of the bomb, they literally launch it out, it explodes out of the ship, and all the humans survive, or probably not all the humans, a few of them did die in, previous to this, but yep, most of them survive, and they can now live alongside the people, the invisible people of Refusus 2. So that's a bit of a overview of the Ark, bit of a review there. I'm sorry that some of my my notes I couldn't really elaborate on too much because it was a couple of weeks ago since I since I watched this. Sorry, I really need to kind of get on top of watch the episode and do the review pretty soon after, but I've just been quite busy with other things that hadn't really got round to it. But anyway, a rating for the Ark, I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. I actually thought this was a decent story. It's not amazing. I say that a 7 out of 10 is kind of, where the majority of Doctor Who stories sit for me. I used to say average. I don't think average is the right word for it, but a 7 out of 10 is a good story. For me, this is just a little bit below that at a 6.5 because some of the themes are a little bit cliche and a little bit obvious. I like the whole concept of the two stories thing, but the second part, the parts 3 and 4 are definitely more interesting than parts 1 and 2. And yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here with the humans, with the monoids, with the whole kind of servant-slave thing, switching from humans, from monoids to humans. I really like that. And yeah, generally it's a fairly enjoyable episode. So a 6.5 out of 10 for the Ark. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.